Hello, hello, my friends. It is Hondo, and welcome back to the Knights of the Nerd Republic. You know what to do, and stay profitable.
The Nerd Academy podcast is released weekly at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, available on our website at www.thenerdacademypodcast.com and wherever you listen to podcasts. You can find the Nerd Academy podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. You can also help support the show by going to patreon.com/The Nerd Academy podcast, where every donation allows us to bring you more exciting content every week.
Hello there, and welcome back to Knights of the Nerd Republic, the show where your favorite nerds talk all things about the galaxy far, far away. I am your host, Jarod, the Dark Jedi Bachman Stubbs, and I am joined by my welcome to a show where we talk, and I can't speak fucking English. Joined by my illustrious co-host, Kason Brion.
Welcome to the show where words come out sometimes.
Words will come out of a hole. Can't guarantee which one.
Or in what order.
Or in what order. I want to a little bit of sizzle. Next week, hopefully, we'll be doing a review of the new book, The Living Force by John Jackson Miller. The novel about the Jedi Council kind of going on like a public relief mission. It's very good. I finished it the other day. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. There's a lot of things it left me thinking about. But there is an integral plot point in that book. I'm not going to spoil anything, but there's an integral plot point in that book that involves Yoda talking the way he does. And I figured it out right before it happened. And I laughed my ass off as it happened because I was like, oh, John Jackson Miller, you crazy son of a bitch. But it's very funny. It's very funny. It's a fantastic book. I'm excited to hopefully talk about it next week. So stay tuned for that. You might get a little double KNR drop next week because of it. But yeah, we have a hell of a show for you guys today. We're talking about Outlaws. We're talking about Bad Batch. We're talking about the Acolyte. We're talking about some dumbass discourse and some discourse that is valid but is being chosen not to be had because of other dumb shit. It is
We love the internet.
We love the internet. We love conversations. We love people talking on the internet. I do though. I do this. We do this. I wanted to do this, and we do this because I think these conversations, having people not necessarily to lead the conversations, but to take point in the conversations, to help start the conversations, are important. I think that the fandom public square is an important institution, and it makes me angry when people just shit in the public square. When people just drop trowel and take a steaming pile of shit in the middle of where we're supposed to have intelligent conversations, or maybe not even intelligent conversations.
We're all mingling, having fun, and then somebody's just like, hey man, gotta go. And it's like, oh.
And then someone pulls down their trousers and they just go, whoa, and then it all just comes out of them. But we will get to that. But before we start talking about shit, we're off to a great start today. A word from our lovely sponsors at Sunday's Bloody Mary. You guys know the drill. Sunday's Bloody Mary has the most badass Bloody Mary accoutrement in the galaxy with their 3-time award-winning spicy Caesar mix, as well as their mild and traditional mixes if the spice ain't for you. You can also get your freak on and garnish that bad boy with their award-winning pickled dilly beans, okra, and asparagus, and salt that rim if you're nasty. As you guys have heard me say before, as a former bartender and a Bloody Mary lover, Sunday's Bloody Mary is the GOAT Bloody Mary mix. I don't use Bloody Mary mix, or at least I didn't until I found Sunday's Bloody Mary and got to tear it up with that spicy Caesar mix. It is a game changer. You will never go back. I never want to see zing zang ever again in my life. Sundays is the only way to go. And if you would like to forever change your Bloody Mary game, you can use the link in the description down below and use the code TNAP, TNAP at checkout to get 10% off your order and help out your favorite nerds while you do it. Kason,
Yes.
you're a gamer.
A bit.
How you feeling about this Star Wars Outlaws trailer?
I think it looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was really impressed by the trailer. I think that it has a beautiful, really nice amalgamation of like old and new. We finally got our story trailer. I think that it's starting from a really interesting place that a lot of Star Wars gaming has made, in my opinion, a pretty bold decision to not rely heavily on its pre-established characters. Um, Save for your Battlefronts, all of these games that I can think of have all involved brand new protagonists. Our existing characters are involved; they're in the background. Battlefront 2's campaign, especially, Luke, Leia, Lando, Han, are all in the periphery. But at the end of the day, that story is about Iden Versio and Del Meeko. The Star Wars Jedi games, they were like, no, we're not just going to do an Obi-Wan thing. We're not just doing Luke. We're telling a story about a brand new character, and building that oeuvre, and that base of new characters in the lineage of Star Wars gaming protagonists out. And I think, as I've said before, Star Wars Outlaws is, it's going to do this. It's going to, again, trail a new path forward. I think that they have picked the most interesting point in the timeline to jump into. The war between Crimson Dawn and the Empire, has wrapped up. The War of the Bounty Hunters has wrapped up. Jabba the Hutt has never been more powerful. The syndicates at large have never been more powerful, because war is raging and the Empire is less concerned with thugs and gangsters as it is with the actual insurgency that challenges its sovereignty. And to choose this time, I think, is very clever. And on top of that, again, we have a new scoundrel. Yeah, a handful of new scoundrels, new syndicates. I love this idea that Kay is kind of just, instead of doing the one last heist, it's kind of like, I kind of only really need to do one big one and then I'm done.
Yeah.
Which I think is a fun premise. I love that it's taking us to Canto Bight for
Yeah.
that big heist. I think it just, I'm so excited to get a feel for the levels of escalation here for Kay's journey. And I am super excited for this. I never thought the day would come, especially after getting two incredible games that are so deeply entrenched, obviously, in the way of the Jedi, because you're playing as a Jedi and lightsaber go burr. More on that later. I that in the wake of that I'm like, okay, we're getting another Star Wars game. If you had asked me even a year ago, even a couple years ago, I would have told you that I'm like, I'll probably play it because it's a new Star Wars game, but like,
Right.
give me my laser sword, give me my space magic, and I'm fucking pumped for this game for the most part, and excited by its premise.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a very cool it's going to be a very cool look at the other side, as we've been talking about since the game was announced. Like, very cool to have like a game like from the perspective of the scoundrel side of things. And what that's like you said, especially in that time period, because like the Empire is entirely putting their worry into the rebellion. So gangsters and thugs are just ruling the outer rim, running completely amok.
Yes. Very,
So
very much amok. Very much
will be
amok.
very cool to see.
It's very exciting, and again, this is, and we also got the confirmation that like this will be our first on-screen look at Kira post solo Star Wars story. She's
Yeah.
played a pivotal role in the comics as of late, which is very exciting. And to undercount Kira's appearances there and the war she's waged against the Empire. I think it's one of those I've not read those comics. My goal is to read them before Outlaws comes out. But what this image it sticks in my mind. I think it was from was it War of the Bounty Hunters? I think it was from Crimson Reign. Was the name of the story where Kira goes toe to toe with Darth Vader, and she's using some type of like energy based. It was kind of like an electro staff, but it's more like a kendo stick, electro staff. And or maybe it was like a full, no, I think it was a full staff because that's why the image was so striking. That they do this really cool parallel where it calls back to the two people that mentored both Vader and Kira, being Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Maul, respectively. And there's this amazing panel that recreates this one. Like if you just Google image search Obi-Wan versus Darth Maul, one of the first images that comes up is this still from the Phantom Menace, where Obi-Wan is like drawing back over his right shoulder, going into a strike against Maul, who's holding his lightsaber like parallel diagonally from his body, and they recreate that shot identically with Vader and Kira. And I haven't read it, but that one panel sticks out in my mind from seeing it floating around. And Charles Soule's an incredible writer. Some of his work in the High Republic is some of my favorite pieces of that story. And yeah, I'm so excited for this game. However, there is a bit of controversy here. Controversy that I am not going to lie has weighed on my excitement a bit. With the release of the story trailer, we also received announcements that there will be three versions of Star Wars Outlaws being released. There is the base game and pre-order bonus, should you buy the game ahead of time, that is clocking in at the standard $69.99. Okay, normal price for a game. Now there is the gold edition that has the base game, the pre-order bonus, a 3-day early access, and the season pass. Now, let's get into why there is some controversy here. The season pass on the gold tier includes 2 DLCs that will release after launch to keep exploring the world of Star Wars Outlaws with all new stories, quests, and areas to discover, including the Jabba's Gambit exclusive mission at launch and the Kessel Runner character pack, including additional cosmetics for Kay and Nix. The Kessel Runner pack, it's basically a Han Solo theme for her ship, the Pathfinder. Trailblazer. I think it's a Trailblazer is the name of her ship. Pathfinder was a type of rebel soldier who served on Scarif. Which again, the pack is cool. However, there has been some controversy stewing up over the fact that a mission involving Jabba the Hutt, a character featured in both trailers, you're getting into a Star Wars game set during the dark times between The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. What was some of the most striking imagery in the announcement trailer? Boba Fett getting Han off of Slave One and seeing Jabba's palace. What was one of the most exciting things in this trailer? Seeing Kay gaze upon the frozen Han Solo in Jabba's palace and gain audience with Jabba himself. That mission was behind a $110 paywall.
Yikes.
To get the gold edition of the game. Then there is the Ultimate Edition, which has different cover art, the base game, the pre-order bonus, 3 days early access, season pass, as well as some extra cosmetic bundles, the Rogue Infiltrator that has cosmetics for Kay, Nix, her speeder, and Trailblazer. I was right about the name. The Sabak Shark bundle, which is again another set of cosmetics. Rogue Infiltrator is loosely based on like Jyn Erso, kind of going for a Rogue One type vibe. Sabak Shark is a Lando based pack, and then a digital art book in the $130 version of the game. There
Interesting.
and yeah, and this is the first point of we're having the wrong fucking conversation I want to have start. Um Trailer comes out. There's a woman in the leading role who does not look like a pinup doll with no rib cage, size Z breasts,
Mm,
and an ass the size of Idaho. Who again just looks like a normal fucking person. And the usual hucksters and grifters threw a hissy fit, and then well-meaning people can proceeded to argue with said hucksters and grifters about their very bizarre taste in women and why they just constantly say, "Why are there no beautiful women in games anymore?" Um, while I obviously am never going to tell somebody that trying to tell some fandom menace weirdo to go fuck themselves is a bad thing, there's a time and a place and a way to do it. And while I think that this argument is one that we've been having for years now and one that is simply not worth having anymore, there is a very real issue at play here with the fact that there is this much of the game's contents locked behind over $100 um in
yeah.
the gold edition, as it were. Now, after several days of brouhaha over this development, Ubisoft has responded. This is from the IGN article by Wesleyan Poole. Ubisoft has responded to the ongoing backlash against Star Wars Outlaws Season Pass, insisting Jabba is part of the experience for all players. The publisher has come under fire for locking Jabba's Gambit mission behind the Star Wars Outlaws controversial Season Pass, which comes with a $109.99 gold edition and an even more expensive $129.99 edition or Ultimate Edition. Quote, play the exclusive Jabba's Gambit mission at launch, the Season Pass reader explains. Just as Kay is putting together a crew for the Canto Bight heist, she receives a job from Jabba the Hutt himself. It turns out that ND5, who I believe is the commando droid, owes Jabba a debt from years ago, and he has come to collect. The revelation sparked backlash, with some players criticizing Ubisoft's decision to lock a mission behind a season pass for what is a full-price single-player only game. Now, Ubisoft has issued a statement insisting that Jabba the Hutt and the Hutt Cartel will be part of the experience for all players, regardless of which edition they buy. To clarify, Jabba the Hutt and the Hutt Cartel are one of the main syndicates in Star Wars Outlaws and will be part of the experience for everyone who purchases the game, regardless of edition, the Ubisoft spokesperson told IGN. Jabba's Gambit is an optional additional mission with the Hutt Cartel along Kay and Nix's journey across the Outer Rim. This mission will be available to those who purchase the Season Pass or an edition of the game, which includes the Season Pass. However, the scope of the Jabba's Gambit mission remains unclear, leaving those who do not buy the Season Pass unsure of what they're missing out on. Ubisoft has said in the past that players can work for or even betray Jabba as the head of one of Star Wars Outlaws' criminal factions. So, I this is good to hear as a clarification.
Yeah.
Um, I remain skeptical and frustrated. My biggest issue being that yes, and I kind of assumed that it's a specific mission involving Jabba. Okay, fine, whatever. I think having a mission where you or one of your close crewmates is in the shit with Jabba the Hutt and you have to unfuck your situation with Jabba is kind of like part of the experience. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's
That's like par for the course with Jabba the Hutt.
yeah, and I do in many ways kind of consider this a self-inflicted wound on Ubisoft's part. Um, if they did not have such a bad reputation on par almost with EA themselves, of, hey, like, like all the memes about like the credit card reader attachment for controllers.
Yeah.
That, you know, I I played the base game of Assassin's Creed Valhalla and was like, okay, cool. And then found out that like how crucially much of the story was continued in DLC. I was
Mm,
like, no, I'm not doing it.
yeah,
Fuck you.
that's messed up.
I'm not no. Like fun little adventures after the fact are one thing.
Right, and, like,
Um
skins and stuff, like, I get it. Like, cosmetics
yeah,
and stuff, like,
yeah,
whatever, that's
I
cool. Charge me $10 for a skin, I get it, make your money. But, like, not part of the damn game, dude.
yeah, and like,
Like,
you know, I I would even go so
I
far
mean,
as to
hey,
say, oh, you say you
let's just
talk your
call the let's just call the EU back into the batter's box, baby. They got Apple. Apple now has USB-C ports on all their shit. Apple's no
yeah.
longer like the European Union came out and was like, "Hey, Apple, um, you're selling a product that only you make the charger to. Literally nobody else uses that. You made it and only you use it. Nobody else does. And then you're not including a charger block in the box with it anymore. So like you're selling an incomplete product and we are not going to allow that." And so Apple decided to change course and go USB-C because they didn't want the European Union to just completely stop importing Apple products.
I think there is room for that type of regulation to come down on the gaming industry. I agree with you. And
100%.
I would even go so far as to say that, like, again, I think there is a difference between the game ends and you do not know the ending unless you pay me more.
Right.
Versus like, here's an additional adventure. Here are more adventures.
Right.
Um, here's kind of a self-contained campaign that you can take part in.
Yeah, because like the game is like, hey, here's the game. And then the DLC should be like, hey, did you fucking love this game? Did you have a really fucking good time playing this? Would you like
do
to
you
play it some more with new shit?
do you want seconds? It should
Yeah,
be, do you want
exactly.
seconds?
Yeah.
Not something that feels like, I hate to say it, cut content, that they were like, well, we can justify continuing to make this if we make them pay for it directly. I think the best handling of a situation like this, a move like this, is the way that Spider-Man took in 2018. Whenever they were like, okay, here is the fucking game.
Yeah.
And
The
here
Spider-Man
is,
games are bangers. They're so good.
they're so good. And then it was like, okay, and here is a continuation of that story in 3 little mini campaigns that kind of add up to like 75% of like a whole ass game
Right.
when you play them concurrently. With the, I almost said the unsleeping city, the city that never sleeps, Dimension
The
20, baby.
Unsleeping City.
Uh, the best Dimension 20 campaign. I've only seen season 1. That Kason, that's the one that I said that I can't watch the trailer for without fucking crying.
Oh.
Um, it moved me so much. But no, the city that never sleeps DLC, it was a self-contained, you know, yeah, they allude to it and kind of reward the players by referencing it in the stuff that's come out since then, and Miles and some of the tie-in comics and in Spider-Man 2, Black Cat's misadventures with Sable and the Maja, it comes up, but it's not integral. It's not, kind of like inextricably linked to the game. And I think a game that, it, I don't know. I don't think I can justify a single mission. And I don't know how long and extensive this is. If this is, if these missions are like some of the more grand Assassin's Creed type things where it's like, okay, you did this thing, but now you got to go do this next thing and then this next thing. And they're all separate missions that are like its own small story. Then again, maybe I can justify it. But having to
Right.
purchase an entire season pass for that,
Yeah.
and then to say, oh, you have to purchase an entire season pass for it, And on top of that, it is like directly in the game, kind of. Like you have to buy your season pass.
Yeah.
Like again, if it was a smaller campaign, that'd be one thing. Again, like the Batman Arkham Knight did this, where they did a couple season passes, but it gave you like 8 extra fucking missions that
Yeah.
or
The Arkham
8,
game DLCs were actually good.
where like you got like just the Batman stuff. You got the race stuff, you got the Mr. Freeze stuff, you got the Killer Croc stuff, you got I think Mad Hatter was in that one. You got like
What?
you like huh
Started doing the what?
Uh,
Like WWE what?
what yeah but yeah, so you got so much out of that, and to just kind of lock one single mission behind a season pass.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
It's an absurd, it's a bizarre move, and
Like,
I
how
think it's a
long is the
shitty one.
season, and what else are you putting out in that time frame? Or like,
Yeah,
give me a rough estimate at least. Be like, hey,
yeah,
buy the whole season pass for this one thing, and then also we're gonna crank out these 3 other things in the first season. Like, that's cool. That makes some sense. But
yeah,
like,
and again, if they're long and drawn out, like
yeah,
again, like it is a series of individual missions that are all part of one storyline. I can be a little bit more forgiving about that. But if
right.
this is one, hop in the Trailblazer, go to fucking Kajimi, stick some people up on Kajimi, get your money, come back to Jabba, and it takes you like maybe 30 minutes, that's a fucking farce.
Yeah,
And
100%.
I am diametrically opposed to it. I say that I'm probably gonna fucking buy it because I want to do more Java stuff, and I'm part of the problem for buying it, but I want it. And we
Yeah,
as the consumer are getting screwed by greedier and greedier business practices by these companies. Thank you for your snaps.
absolutely.
But yeah, so Outlaws, I'm excited. I'm frustrated, but I'm excited.
Yes,
Um,
we'll see how it pans out. Hopefully it's not as dumb as it appears to be. But
Absolutely. Yeah. And like I said, again, this is still something I'm very excited for, this era of storytelling, um,
absolutely.
commingled with the medium it's in. I think it's gonna be really fun. Um, Jumping into our next topic here, we have some insight into the Acolyte recently. We're going to be kind of skimming through some of these interviews Empire Magazine did with Leslie Headland and some of the stars of Star Wars: The Acolyte. Um, so yeah, their big cover story is out now. So if you are a subscriber to Empire Magazine, you'll be able to read that in full. Yeah, so in speaking with Carrie Ann Moss and Leslie Headland, Carrie Ann Moss, obviously of the Matrix fame, um, they're talking about how Carrie Ann Moss, we'll get we've already seen her do some hand-to-hand combat in the trailer with May, Amanda Stenberg's character, that Master. I lost the name. Indara, Master Indara. Is kind of doing some hand-to-hand stuff with the Force in there, kind of referring to it as Force Fu. Quote, she is very much inspired by Trinity, Headland tells Empire. When casting Moss, she was a quote no-brainer. If it means Star Wars fans get to see Indara as Trinity with a lightsaber, that is the intended effect. Quote, I personally wanted to see someone who had the highest status you could imagine in a Force Fu fight. Somebody who could come in and you immediately would be like, oh, that's the most powerful Jedi in the room. And that's Trinity, Headland says. As for Moss, she was immediately hooked by Headland's vision for the Acolyte, likening it to her conversations with Christopher Nolan and the Wachowskis. I felt like a few times in my career, I felt that a few times in my career with some of the big things I've done. Memento, The Matrix, when you're talking to the filmmaker and you just go, oh, they totally get it. she says. And Moss, too, got plenty out of jacking into the galaxy far, far away. Quote, within my soul and my spirit, to get to play this Jedi Master and train for the fight was an amazing experience, Moss enthuses. A part of me forgot how much I love action. I love it. It's hard, but I was just really thrilled that I could do it, and I wanted to do it well. Give me another take. Give me another take. Whatever dark side force is rising in the Acolyte, dodge this. So that was the bit from Carrie-Anne Moss. And then he also spoke with Juna Sawatomo, who we know primarily as the body of Chewbacca in the sequel trilogy and in Solo, A Star Wars Story, who is going to be playing the reclusive Wookiee Jedi Master Kelnaka. The legendary Wookiee Chewbacca is many things: a loyal friend, a stellar co-pilot, a guilty devourer of porgs. This is all from Ben Travis at Empire, among others, but he's not exactly Jedi material. And his propensity for guttural growls are two reasons. His propensity for the article is weirdly cut off here, but we'll jump into the quotes here. Ever since I was 5 years old, I've been fantasizing about being a Jedi, like every kid, Sawatomo tells Empire. When the word Jedi was first mentioned in talks for the Acolyte, I felt really excited, like a little kid who finally gets his favorite toy on his birthday. Shaping an all-new kind of Wookiee meant going back to what Sawatomo learned from playing Chewbacca. Peter Mayhew told me right from the get-go, quote, Peter Mayhew told me right from the get-go that Chewbacca is a mime character, Sawatomo recalls. The audience doesn't understand what he's saying exactly, but they interpret his mannerisms and every little twitch and every little moment and roar. From there, it was a case of unquote. From there, it was a case of using those principles to make his Acolyte character something new and different. Kelnaka being a Jedi that sets certain expectations to how you carry yourself in the line of duty, explains Sawatomo, promising a less impulsive fuzzball. There are certain assumptions that can be made as to whether he lets his emotions take control of him to the extent that Chewbacca would, for example. It was very interesting to bake that into the character and try to personify that on screen. And then they go on to acknowledge the fact that this is not the first Wookiee Jedi we've seen. We've had Gungi, we've had Burryaga in the Clone Wars and Star Wars: The High Republic, respectively. Sawatomo comments on Burryaga. I was aware of the character and had talked to the High Republic writers at a convention. Sawatomo says of the books, but notes that he hasn't read Burryaga's adventures. I also wanted to differentiate Kelnaka from Burryaga and not copy too much from those stories. And then the article again very cheekily ends with now who knows what May the Force be with you is in Shriwook. You know, the Carrie-Anne Moss stuff, we kind of glided right into the second little conversation thing that we've gleaned here. And we'll kind of circle back to the Carrie-Anne Moss conversation with the fight choreography. This I just want to hone in on and just say that, like, this, I am excited to see Kelnaka, not necessarily because of the novelty of a Wookiee Jedi Knight in live action, but for everything Jonas Sawatomo has said in this interview, or at least the brief glimpse of it we get in the online version from Empire, because that physicality, having to embody, some of the different mannerisms that fully differentiate a Chewbacca from Kelnaka. I like that just fascinates me. And knowing that it's Sawatomo, that's just so exciting to get to see him really cook in this role where it is all his body, it is all physicality. It kind of comes down to the ways that we've sung the praises of the stunt doubles and body doubles in The Mandalorian, that their bodies are able to convey so much of what Din is feeling despite us not being able to see his face. And the marriage of those two gentlemen and Pedro Pascal's vocal performance, create like a fully formed human being who we never see. And Sawatomo now gets to kind of like do the next level of that in terms of difficulty, where now it's, I have, my face is covered in all these prosthetics and it's all physical. I don't get to include how the dialogue sounds in my performance. It is all physicality, it is all in the face, it is all in the body language. And when you're dealing with Jedi, a Star Wars archetype that is so known for being reserved and conservative in terms of emotions and feelings, that leaning into this idea that he is more reserved than a Chewbacca, I think that's very enticing and exciting.
Absolutely.
Yeah. One or a couple little bits here as well from this. Touching on Vernestra Rowe, our first and only character we know of for sure from the High Republic print media, who will be appearing in the Acolyte. Again, from the Ben Travis article, for the most part, the Acolyte is set to be an entirely new Star Wars experience. It's set in an unexplored 100 years prior to the Phantom Menace. It has an entirely new cast of Jedi. Its mystery plot is being kept tightly under wraps. But for the fans of the High Republic novel set 100 years before the Acolyte, there will be a familiar face. Rebecca Henderson is playing Vernestra Rowe, a High Republic character who in the books is a prodigious young Jedi Knight who passed the trials at 15 and soon finds herself facing the threat of the marauding Nile. The Acolyte, in the Acolyte, the green-skinned Mary Allen is now 116 years old and a fully fledged Jedi Master based in the temple on Coruscant. The Acolyte creator, Leslie Headland, is thrilled to have Rowe be a part of the series. Quote, I absolutely love Vernestra. You can tell because I cast my wife. She laughs while speaking to Empire. But she says much has changed in the time between the High Republic novels and where we find Vernestra Rowe now. She's, quote, been through some shit, unquote, according to the showrunner. Quote again, that has resulted in her going from this fun-seeking character in the books to a little bit closer to the type of Jedi we see in the Phantom Menace. So yeah, while books like Out of the Shadows see Rowe figuring out her earliest years as a Jedi Knight, the significant time jump in the Acolyte means she holds serious stature in the series. Quote, because she has been around for so long, she has basically met everyone that has come through the temple, and she see them all die their natural deaths if they're living a natural human life, explains Henderson. She knows Li Zhangzhe's Jedi Master Soul since he was a tiny child. And then there's a little bit here kind of talking about the transition where Headland says, I've already talked to Pablo Hidalgo about it. So yeah, or talk about other characters who can make the leap from the page to the screen. This is so interesting to me, and I kind of, part of me does and part of me doesn't want the inside baseball on whether or not, well, let me rephrase that. I know, not because of any inside information or anything, but just logistically, the Acolyte was filming for so long that the left hand probably had an idea as to what the right hand was doing when Vernestra is kind of beginning to like mature at a like terminal velocity right now in the books. I've not begun Defy the Storm yet, but in the wake of the death of her former master, Stellan Gios, Vernestra kind of being on the fence as to whether or not she really holds the title of Jedi these days because she's, trying to do what she can in the occlusion zone. I think it is very prescient that we're beginning to see Vernestra really have to, she also thinks her own Padawan is dead at this point as well as her former master. So like we've seen her experience this like immediate gut punch. And I think it's fascinating knowing what we know currently about Vernestra and knowing that she will be a little bit more of a hardened, Jedi Council type. I don't necessarily know if they're going to say that Vernestra Rowe ever sat on the Jedi High Council. But when they talk about the kind of Jedi you see in Phantom Menace, that gives me the vibe of somebody who would be very comfortably sitting next to a Plo Koon or a Saisi Tin.
Very seasoned.
Very seasoned. Very, very seasoned. So yeah, we have that bit. And then we have
Did my mic suddenly get really loud?
I don't think so.
Okay, making sure. I think my monitoring was just messed up before, and now it's correct. But I'm a lot louder in my own ears.
And then we get one last bit from the Empire bit here, talking about the fall of the Jedi. It's been from the Empire article. It's been a long part of the Star Wars mythos, but something rarely depicted in live action. Go back before. It's been a long part of the Star Wars mythos, but something rarely depicted in live action. Go back before Order 66 and the events of the prequels, and the galaxy was once flooded with the Jedi. The sight of lightsaber wielders moving en masse was a major moment at the end of Attack of the Clones. But given the Palpatine and a nascent Vader bumped all the other Jedi off shortly after, it's rarely been seen again. The Acolyte is set to deliver exactly that. The new Star Wars series, from an original idea by Russian doll creator Leslie Headland, is set 100 years before The Phantom Menace at the end of the largely peaceful High Republic era. And it is a time simply stacked with Jedi, which in and of itself begs a bigger overarching Star Wars question. If the Jedi once flourished and all power were once flourishing and all powerful, how did they let it slip so badly by the time of the Skywalker saga when Darth Sidious violently takes over? That's part of the big picture at play in The Acolyte. Quote, I was interested in how did the Jedi get to where they are in The Phantom Menace, Headland tells Empire. You're definitely getting a sense of that. You're definitely getting a sense that with the Jedi, the writing may be on the wall. The quote unquote war of this Star Wars is much smaller, but a more personal one. The war between people, the war between characters. Then she goes on to explain the characters here. Those people include Li Zhongjae's Jedi Master Soul, who is, quote, massively respected and incredibly powerful. His Padawan, Daphne Keen's Jecki. She wants to be perfect for him. Charlie Barnett's Jedi Knight Yord. He's kind of a jerk. He's a little bit of a goody two-shoes. And Joanna Suatomo's Wookiee Jedi Kelnaka, another Star Wars dream come true, says the actor. We talked about that earlier. And then we also talked about the stuff with Master Indara. Headland also says it's one story with several reveals and new clues and new information in each episode. It's not just a mystery that you have to find out. It's not unlike Russian Doll. It's almost like a spiral. It digs deeper and deeper and deeper. For Lee, taking his first steps into Hollywood post Squid Game, it's that genre twist that that'll hook audiences the most. It's going to get even more intriguing and gripping because of that detective genre. It's going to keep you on the edge of your toes, wanting to guess. But yeah, so very, very exciting stuff. Not a whole lot that we haven't already known, but some insight. Some exciting stuff to hear. This is a very exciting little element of the Star Wars hype machine, is getting to hear everybody talk ahead of time, and it's something that I sorely missed during the strikes. That's for certain. But as I get this last little bit of pre-Acolyte press going, this is where we start to talk about some discourse.
I'm just excited to see a new era of Star Wars television. Or a new era of Star Wars in television. And in movies, because we're gonna get that too later on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're excited for new things?
Yeah.
You're excited? Kason.
I'm not allowed to be excited for new things. I forgot.
Kason. New Star Wars isn't good. The old Star Wars is what's good. The Mandalorian wasn't good until we decided we didn't like The Mandalorian as it was anymore. So this is from Entertainment Weekly. Dalton Ross.
We love it.
Behind the article. Love me some EW. Star Wars The Acolyte aims to top Darth Maul lightsaber fight. That was a very frequent question we had, Daphne Keene tells Entertainment Weekly, of trying to match the epic scene. There's a lot of excitement surrounding Star Wars' latest live-action Disney Plus entry, The Acolyte, premiering June 4th. The series will be the first on-screen look at the High Republic era, which has been thoroughly examined in a series of recent novels. It is also the most diverse Star Wars project ever and boasts an impressive cast, including Amanda Stenberg, Li Zhongjae, Carrie-Anne Moss, Manny Jacinto, Charlie Barnett, Daphne Keene, and Jodie Turner-Smith. But there was another reason fans are eagerly anticipating the show, and that would be the brief glimpses at the action on display in the recently released trailer. With fight sequences clearly being inspired by martial arts choreography, the Acolyte have fans dreaming of returning to what many consider to be the best lightsaber battle in the franchise's history: Darth Maul's acrobatic engagement against Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi in The Phantom Menace. And if viewers are hoping the fights in the Acolyte can match or exceed that epic confrontation,
Hey.
they are not alone. It is a bar that the cast and crew openly talked about openly and often. Quote, yeah, that was a very frequent conversation we had. Keen, who plays Jackie Lon, tells Entertainment Weekly. It was very much, we want to top the Darth Maul fight, the most iconic fight. I think in the Star Wars cinematic universe, it's such an amazing fight, and we were all so excited about the lightsaber fights. There's such a skill and craft to it that feels so OG Star Wars and feels so impressive when you see it as a viewer. Keen's fondest memories on set involve having a lightsaber in her hand. It was my favorite part of filming. I loved the whole training process of it. Everyone was super excited about it, and which made it more fun. An incredible stunt team created the fusion of different martial arts, and we were really trained how to use those lightsabers. I feel very comfortable with the sword now, and I know that Charlie does too, and I know that JJ does as well. We were all in there for hours a day training. It was really fun to kind of explore also a different side to the characters within the fighting. So that little bit there kind of got the ball rolling in a conversation that was as stupid as you might think it may have been. A certain Star Wars theorist took to Twitter, and this is when this is the shit I take umbrage with. Star Wars Theory tweets. It's a picture of Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon fighting next to a picture of Jackie. We want to top the Darth Maul fight, the most iconic fight, I think, in the Star Wars cinematic universe. Daphne Keen on The Acolyte. I showed Nick Gillard that comment. To be so bold to think it could be matched, let alone topped by anyone other than Nick directing that fight himself, tells all. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. I am eternally frustrated by this logic when it's coming from like good faith people. Like people who don't actively suck. I think that you'll never be able to outdo blank. That logic, that rationale is a death sentence for art and media.
That's fair.
I think it is. I think when that admission comes, where it's like, you can never top that, you have kind of admitted from the beginning that you aren't willing to like open up to new things, in my opinion. You know, like a conversation, let's go back to both Jared Leto and Joaquin Phoenix being cast as the Joker. I think it's a phenomenal microcosm there. Performance is legendary. The fact that he was incredible in the role, the fact that it was tragically his last role, you know, and the way that everybody was just so spellbound by him on set when he got into character, you know, all of those things are, you know, exist, and they coalesce and they create this deified version of Ledger's Joker. And I don't say that to take its flowers away, just that like it's something that's very much put on a pedestal, on a larger than normal pedestal for nerd culture stuff. I think is something most people can agree on. Jared Leto was cast as the Joker. And before we saw anything, before we saw face tattoos, before we saw Suicide Squad, before he was making weird jokes about Batman giving him a reach around in the Snyder cut, before all of that,
Release the reach around cut.
don't. I'm good. in all, before a line of dialogue was spoken by Jared Leto on screen. Oh, this fucking sucks. I'll never be able to top Heath Ledger. Well, there's no conversation to have after that. I truly do. I think if you go into these performances, go like, you'll never be able to top blank. I think it's why that they're and that specific mindset of you'll never be able to do the thing that I liked first. That circular logic is why fandom culture is in this horrifying place it is right now. I think it is the root of the you changed my thing, you've added to my thing, and now it's bad. This whole idea that it has to stick as close to what the individual deems as how they remember and why they loved such a thing, as the be all end all of its existence. And that when you start adding things like a more diverse cast, a more explicitly, loudly, politically progressive undertone, things like that, people start to push back. Now, again, in the specific case of Star Wars, there is the politics were never subtle. The Ewoks are the Viet Cong of it all. That if you missed it, I get it. You were 12, but you're fucking 40 now. You have no excuse.
Yeah.
I think is there. But this idea, and it's I almost want to diagram this tweet from Star Wars Theory. We want to top the Darth Maul fight. That it equals the quote. I showed Nick Gillard that comment to be so bold to even think it could be matched, let alone topped by anyone other than Nick Gillard directing that fight himself, tells all. Does that inherently mean you just want you just think like Star Wars fights can never be that good again?
Yeah, I don't know, because so one thing that I kind of get that perspective is if it's the first time something has been done on screen or first time you've seen something on screen, like the Phantom Menace,
The good one.
the good one.
TPM, not TM.
There were a lot of good firsts in that movie, and there were a lot of it was a bold new era of special effects and everything.
Yeah, the Phantom Menace, say what you will about that movie. I know that this is a very pro Phantom Menace podcast, and I know
Yes.
that there are a lot of people who do not care for that movie, and you're entitled to that opinion. I don't think you can take away from the fact that the Phantom Menace is fucking groundbreaking.
Right.
And in many ways, inculcated from a lot of the criticisms levied against the prequel trilogy, because it has shit of the first fully CGI character in the history of film in Jar Jar Binks, melded with stuff like the pod race, which was a VFX masterwork, on top of the fact that it was integrated with all the minis and the practical effects there as well. So it's groundbreaking. It leaned into George Lucas wanting to push the envelope with the technology, but it also is very much rooted in that practical, we'll figure it the fuck out as we go ILM way, and it is so respectable. And yeah, the Duel of the Fates, Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon versus Darth Maul, it changed the game. When I don't know a single person our age who, when they're talking about their favorite lightsaber duels, doesn't put this in their top 3. It is my favorite.
Yeah.
It remains my favorite. Not because I don't think anything can be better, but because it just kind of has that place. And I'm also adult enough. And again, when I was talking earlier about the importance of fandom, the fandom public square, and people who choose to take a shit in that public square. And I think leading conversations in this direction, that It can only be this good if the old white guy I know does it again. This is going back towards the conversation we had a couple weeks ago, Kason, you weren't here, but like that whole idea of like people being angry that George Lucas backed Bob Iger
Yeah.
for the spot of CEO for Disney, where it's like everyone's like, "Oh, Lucas finally betrayed us. Star Wars is officially dead," almost implying that it was somehow written in the stars that George was ever going to come back.
Yeah.
Like, I got news for you. The most we're ever getting out of George is that he named Axe Woves. That's all we're getting out of
Diet
George.
Pepsi.
Yeah, well, where's my Diet Pepsi? Give me my Sbarro and my Diet Coke. But this whole it can't be good. I just it fascinates me. It cannot be matched, let alone topped by anyone other than Nick directing that fight himself. Tells all. And that tells all ... just has this implication of that like seething resentment
Yeah,
that
and it's like, why
anybody
are you that
dares.
mad? Like, why are you that upset about it? But what I was saying, like, there are some perspectives with like there are some versions of that perspective that I get where if you're saying like because this was the first time this was done, like you'll never top that because like I can understand that. Like the reaction to seeing something on like on the big screen for the first time, like obviously you can't recreate that. Like
No,
you can build on what that did. You can't recreate that exact same like holy shit that was crazy. I mean
yeah,
like but like it's lightsaber duels. Like that's what we've been doing because like in the original trilogy like they were lightsaber duels but they weren't anything crazy. Because like in the like obviously like 1977 and like in the through the 80s like David Prowse was wearing a massive suit that was really fucking hard to move in. So
yeah,
like
yeah. Well, in
they
A New
couldn't
Hope,
have
it's
him
Prowse.
do crazy shit.
It
And
got to the
also
point
Anakin is mechanical.
they got to a point where they had to bring in a different guy in the Vader suit to do the fights.
Yeah.
And those were insane for the time. And like, you know, what you're saying is so true and so poignant that like, yeah, you can't recreate the magic in the bottle that was, you know, Kora Ratama, Darth
Right. Yeah. Having
throwing
like
off
a
the rose,
crazy ass choral
picks on both
background.
sides of the lightsaber, Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon locking the fuck in, ready to throw down. You can't recreate that. Sure.
Right.
But to imply that wanting to go, okay, let's use the Duel of the Fates as like our building block here.
Right.
That should be one of the highest compliments paid to Nick Gillard in recent time. Because, and I was having this conversation in the group chat I'm in with all our friends, where we were talking about how like the direction we hope to see the choreography go. This is before this whole clusterfuck happened. The direction we were hoping to see the choreography go for the new Jedi Order movie with Rey, and how we were talking about like I said like I love how white knuckle and grimy and brawly almost the lightsaber duels of recent time have been,
Yeah.
even the ones that have involved prequel characters in Obi-Wan Kenobi, that they lacked that prequel elegance, and within the text it makes sense. If you look at the sequel trilogy, those fights are so grimy and gritty because the people who are in those fights consistently are somebody who is a down and dirty aggressive fucking power fighter who's a brick shithouse of a machine fighting somebody who does not have traditional lightsaber combat, is fighting like she's swinging a staff, and when she's able to
Yeah.
tap into Kylo Ren's mind, Rey is doing like a facsimile of how Kylo fights. So you end up with two people who are just wailing on each other with Gem So, and that's cool and that's fine. And when you flash forward to Obi-Wan Kenobi, it's this down and dirty thing because Obi-Wan's out of practice and Vader's at his prime of being a fucking Jedi hunter. So yeah, Obi-Wan's kind of fighting on Vader's terms, but even then, like you start to get a little bit of that kind of like floaty, highfalutin, whatever. And then we flash further into Ahsoka, and all those fights were framed like samurai duels. And we get like a lot of that dynamic, swiftly moving things with the skirmishes Shin and Sabine have. And like we get some of that, we get hints of that, but again, it's these two scrappy apprentices, and then you have the older masters who are taking point from like samurai fiction. The fact that the Acolyte, what were you going to say? I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
The fact that the Acolyte went, okay, we know that by proximity, in terms of the timeline, in terms of like what the Jedi martial art body politic looks like right now, we are closer to Duel of the Fates than we are Luke v. Vader 2. So it should look more like that. So we are going to break from the mold we've had for almost a fucking decade now of these grimy, gritty, park and bark, wailing on each other fucking lightsaber duels, to go back to the high-flying acrobatics, to go to lean in less to like a traditional samurai thing, but more into like a martial arts movie with the wire work, with the force foo, as they were alluding to with the Carrie-Anne Moss interview. You know, I remember fucking Dictor Van Doomfuck, I hate myself. I watched his trailer breakdown of the Acolyte. I shouldn't have done it. I know better. But I remember him talking about it, and he could not get over that moment where Indara force pushes May back, and May kind of glides on the tips of her toes backwards. And instead of being like, oh, we've never seen somebody react to a force push like that. We've never seen that kind of like that specific moment where it's treated like again, a palm strike in a kung fu movie where somebody kind of slides back from that. Like, no, it's like, well, that's not how it's been before, so it's bad. That's fucking stupid.
Yeah.
Because by that token, if we're going to use that same fucking logic, Duel of the Fates is awful. Because everyone's doing all these crazy flips, and they're doing all these acrobatics, and why the fuck is Darth Maul's lightsaber 10 feet long? Like the internal logic doesn't fucking exist. It doesn't fucking exist. Nick Gillard, who has had the biggest fall off in the history of people who were just universally held in high regard, universally held in high regard, high regard. You laugh too hard at that. Don't that accidental pun did not deserve that. You know that like he's being paid such a high compliment that they were like, we are like the building block of these fights is Duel of the Fates.
Yes.
That is such a high
hey,
compliment.
Yeah, because they're saying, hey, buddy, you set the bar. Why are we mad at this? Also, the reason I've been bouncing up and down on this side of the screen for the past however many minutes, I was thinking the exact same thing. I was like, it fits with the fucking times, because like after the prequels, obviously you have like all the Jedi are gone, and then like they start to slowly go back, and obviously none of them are gonna know how to fucking fight. So it's just gonna be, oh shit, okay, swing, hack, slash, swing, and like
it's not as refined. There aren't
and like the High Republic is
dedicated
supposed to be
blade
like the
masters
height.
anymore.
The High Republic is supposed to be like the height of the Jedi, right?
Yeah.
Like this is prime Jedi. So like they're gonna know more shit. They're gonna be doing more shit. They're gonna be studying more different shit. They're doing other shit because it's a different time. Like the 45-year-olds that say it was a different time.
Yeah.
It was a different time.
It was a different time. It was a different time, you know, and I just think it is emblematic of this inability to part with what you I'm going to rephrase that. It's this inability to even consider parting with what you knew to see how it can be expanded upon.
Right.
It's a conversation that's had with music all the time.
Yes.
Oh, music nowadays, blah, 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 blah. Okay, sure. There isn't a Beatles or a Rolling Stones or whatever around these days.
That's Taylor Swift right now.
You know, right now that's her. Right now
Yeah.
that's her changing what can be done. People have trailblazed music. People have created different sounds. Now we're experimenting with how you can like meld more sounds together. You know,
Right.
People like, are constantly talking about like, oh, you know, like I can't listen to modern day rap because blah 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 blah. And it's like, no, you just like what you like, and that's
Right.
okay. That's
fine.
fucking okay. If
You just don't have to shit on everything else.
you don't have to shit on everything else and then say that it's inherently bad because it's not what you know.
Right.
Because every generation before has said the same thing. And people like Star Wars Theory, who want to thump their chest about how much they love the prequels and how the prequels got too much hate and how the prequels are underrated and they're misunderstood masterpieces. You want to talk all this fucking shit about this stuff, especially these fights that people lampooned at the time. Early YouTube, there was a video called The Totally Phantom Menace where somebody just sat down with an audio track over the Duel of the Fates, pointing out all the times Obi-Wan or Qui-Gon or Darth Maul could have killed each other, but instead did a stupid little fancy move.
It's a movie, dog. Like that. It's a movie. They're doing stuff for the movie.
And even removing that, like if you hate that critical lens that just refuses to engage with the art as it is, you have to meet the media halfway. You get in what you take out. And when you go in with how dare this woman,
this is gonna suck.
How dare this woman think she can do better than the fight I liked when I was a kid? You sound like a fucking child. You sound fucking ridiculous. I'm sorry, if you're legally allowed to drive, let alone drink, and you say shit like this, you shouldn't be on social media. And you should have, I'm sorry, you should have to register with the government to buy a fucking microphone. Like, this shit fucking infuriates me anymore. And then you have people like Nick Gillard, who's like fucking issuing copyright strikes against YouTubers who were doing like breakdowns of his fight choreography. Again, praising his work. Then Nick Gillard's like, I own all of that footage, actually. Like, motherfucker, no, you don't. No, you don't. Not for a second do you own all of this shit.
Yeah.
And the fact that Nick Gillard, instead of like just accepting people love the fights you made and they wanted to try something different, the same way you tried something vastly different back in your time with the PT, now people are trying a different, are going for a different aesthetic in the combat. I don't understand why this is a bad fucking thing. I don't understand how this mentality that because it was lightning in a bottle, it can't be outdone. And even grading it on that curve of outdoing it is fucking silly too. Just this whole conversation that has been started here begins and ends with this idea that the thing I had was great and nothing can ever be as good as it. And like you said earlier, Kason, like, yeah, I will concede you can't recreate the lightning in a bottle that was seeing this fight for the first time, no matter how old you were, no matter where you were. The first time you saw this fight, I've talked about this before. When I was a sophomore in high school, my choir, Spencer Joel and I convinced our choir director to do Duel of the Fates for our spring concert. And then our choir director did like a little after school extra credit thing. Like, hey, you want to be more familiar with the song? Watch the movie it's from. Where we all watched The Phantom Menace in the fucking planetarium, which was cool as shit.
Oh, yeah.
And there were people who were there for the extra credit. There were people who were there to just hang out with their friends. People who never saw Star Wars, never gave a rat's ass about Star Wars, didn't give a fuck. I saw people's jaws hanging open watching this fight. People who didn't give a rat's ass about Star Wars. And they were like, that was sick. That was really cool. That was an impressive feat of cinematography, editing, choreography, you know, the physicality from the actors. Like, You can't recreate that lightning in the bottle. The same way you can't recreate the opening night of The Force Awakens. The same way you can't recreate opening weekend of Avengers and Endgame. Because they're cultural moments. And I think truly on a pathological level, the issues we have of so many people in fandom not being able to move on from what they know and love and accept the new interpolations of it is rooted in the inability to separate the text from the moment it was in. And those things are inextricably linked. They are inextricably linked, and you can't fully divorce them from each other. But in these conversations, if you want to talk about what's better, what can be better, what can be topped, you need to acknowledge it was the first time you saw something like this. And it was incredible because it was so different and so daring and bold. And I just, this conversation's so fucking stupid. This is so fucking dumb, man.
And we have to have it every single time something comes out, which is the worst part. Like literally every single time something comes, like Star Wars, like I get a notification for Instagram and they're like Star Wars posted a photo, and I'm like, oh cool, and then I'm like, there's gonna be a bunch of people saying a bunch of wild shit underneath this, isn't there?
Oh yeah, without fail. Well, like
Yeah.
one of my like and just going to the replies to this tweet. Someone replies to Theory's tweet. To be fair, she only said that they were aiming to top it. That was their goal. Bold, sure, but at least they're aiming high. To me, comments like this are what gives me hope for this show. When someone knows their stuff and wants to be on par with or even surpass what came before. To which Star Wars Theory replies, sure, but it's a slap in Nick's face when they don't hire him, then say the new team can do it better. Didn't fucking say that.
Yeah.
And I will go so far as to say that for Star Wars Theory, a man who has prided himself on his script, on his fan series, a series that has not had its second episode to follow up the first one that came out 8 years ago. Does that mean you think you're on George's level?
Oof.
Because you wrote Vader. You wanted to tell the best Darth Vader story you possibly could. Does that mean you think you can tell Vader's story better than George? But I forgot you're a fucking dude, so you're allowed to say shit like that. It's just so fucking silly.
It's wild, dude.
And again, just Nick Gillard, just the self-inflicted L of being like, oh yeah, I'm gonna choreograph Star Wars Theory's next fan film.
That's crazy.
Okay, man. Okay.
You do you, boo boo.
Sure. And you know what? And I'll watch Ryan versus Dorkman too, because that is the best lightsaber duel of all time. And it's not even in Star Wars. So fuck all of you. RVD2 for life. Moving into our Bad Batch conversation, we had a hell of a twofer these past 2 weeks. So we'll start with last week. Kason, how are you feeling about Juggernaut?
Well, obviously not very good. Started off kind of okay, and I was like, it'll be fine. The Bats can handle this. We'll get out of here. You know, it'll be a little rough. It'll be a little bit close, but like we'll get out of here. And then Omega's like, I'm just gonna have to give myself up. They're not gonna stop until they've got me, are they? And then
no, not that one. The this last week's. Or are you building into that?
What you mean?
Last week's.
Oh wait, you're talking about
where they had to hijack the
that
Juggernaut
was the week
tank.
before. Don't mind me. That was the week that I couldn't be on the episode. Yes, no. I watched today's episode today, and I didn't rewatch last week's episode.
No, you're good. You're good. Well,
I
I'll
forget
jump
what
in.
exactly happens.
Well, last week is us like getting to see Omega, kind of starting to
Getting to see
contend
the
with
vault for the
life
first
in
time and everything.
confinement. Yeah, she's in confinement, and the Bad Batch is like kind of like on a tear to free her, and they hijack the Juggernaut tank to break Rampart out of prison, so that he can help them track down Tantus. And we've been talking a lot about the relationship between Crosshair and the rest of the Bad Batch, and like his redemption arc. And I think that these last two episodes have done a really interesting job of like really starting to intensify a lot of those complicated feelings, because we've gone from we welcome Crosshair back into our arms, and while the Bad Batch is continuing to deal in this place of desperation of trying to rescue Omega, trying to protect Omega, get her home at any cost, Crosshair has now gone. He's come home. He's been accepted by his brothers back into the fold, and now by his brother's side, he has to go back into the belly of the beast.
Right.
And he has to confront the idea of even working with anyone from the Empire again, regardless of why. And seeing that ferocious dedication to Omega, the daring nature of everybody being so ready to like lay it all on the line. It continues to build on this again. On that desperation, on that we have to do this at any cost, knowing that not just Omega's fate is on the line, but also that of like all clones across the galaxy, because they need to know what they're doing at Tantus, and what they don't know is that they're on the precipice of potentially preventing Cataclysm by hopefully handicapping the Emperor's cloning program. And I've found that deeply fascinating. I've really enjoyed that. I've enjoyed seeing Rampart come back into the fold, and the way that he is, again, in many ways, this like dark representation of what Crosshair could have been in some ways. That he is this imperial stooge who is very much only out to save himself. He's making the selfish decisions that Crosshair would have made at one point or another. Like leave Echo behind. The mission is damned. Oh, we're all gonna die. When do I know you're gonna take me back to where I'm supposed to go? Fuck saving this child. Take me home. He's doing all of this, and that I think in many ways he is showing Crosshair through his eyes, like what he could have become while he's in the belly of the beast. And I love that, even if it is only for the purposes of getting inside of that Imperial space station, seeing the Batch all spray paint their armor black.
Yeah.
I think it was a really beautiful visual metaphor for the way that they are following Crosshair into the belly of the beast. Not just into this space station, but into Tantus.
Yeah.
Where it's like, we're all going in together. And this is extra troubling for you, Crosshair, because you just got out.
Yeah.
This whole life that the Empire tried to give you is still a fresh wound. You're not doing it alone. We're all going to masquerade as the Empire's soldiers so that we can save the kid. And seeing Omega embody that spirit of rebellion, that that scrappy, a little bit here, a little bit there, the war did not start and then the rebels blew up the Death Star.
Yeah.
The war started the moment that Palpatine said the words, the First Galactic Empire.
Yes.
That was the moment the war started. And there were tiny wins and major losses for years and years and years and years and years as those wins snowballed down the hill and got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And then, oh fuck, Scarif, oh fuck, Yavin, and then went. Oh fuck, Endor, oh fuck, Jakku.
Yep.
And again, it starts with those tiny moments of rebellion. Nemec would be so proud of Omega. All you had to do was steal a scalpel, kid. All you had to do was steal that scalpel. And now you're figuring out escape routes. Now you're outmaneuvering them because what does the Empire do? They underestimate their enemies. She's a fucking kid. That kid was trained by some of the most elite people in the Grand Army of the Republic. Like you are a dumbass for not frisking this fucking kid.
Yeah.
That's on you. That's on you.
As it always is with the Empire.
Yeah.
It's always on them.
Yeah.
It's the too big to fail attitude. It's crazy.
It's the too big to fail attitude, and it is the fact.
And it exudes out of every single person, top to bottom. So it's so prevalent in every single one of them, even down to the troopers that ain't shit, and it's fucking insane.
Oh my god, it's that unearned confidence, and it's it is we talked about this before. It is we talked before about the Emperor's inability to learn the lessons he needed to win. But that extends to so many people in Imperial High Command, up and down the chain of command. And you'll have your people, you'll have your Thrawns, maybe even your Vaders who get it, who know that's an obvious weakness. It got obviously exploited. Not gonna happen again.
Right.
But then they get overruled. We talked about Palpatine builds a second and arguably a third Death Star because in his mind, the problem was not his idea. The problem was the people around him. If he just makes it bigger, if he just makes it deadlier, it'll be fine. He'll never learn. He'll never learn that an abomination like the Death Star can never work. But that even comes down to Tarkin, especially now with Rogue One. You look at that moment sir, the rebels are closing in on the thermal exhaust port. Retreat in our moment of victory. I think you overestimate their chances.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Scarif was a day ago.
Yeah.
That shit was yesterday.
The bodies are not cold yet.
Yeah. They're certainly irradiated after the Death Star hit the Scarif beach.
Yeah.
The bodies are quite warm. But what you said stands, Kason. What you're right.
Yes.
But yeah, no, the bodies on Scarif aren't cold yet. Evacuate in a moment of triumph. What moment of triumph? This is exactly what we were all afraid was going to happen. The moment the first shots were fired on Scarif.
Yeah.
And it's that constant underestimation of these scrappy fucking kids. It's always going to do them in. It's always going to do them in. And I really do think this, it's not like the art of the cliffhanger is some newfangled literary device or anything. I did not think this episode was going to end on the jump to hyperspace.
Yeah.
And just end with Omega going, oh yeah, I figured something out. I really was surprised that they were yeah, we're just going to end it here.
Yeah. Because we have 2 episodes left?
We have next week. The show ends on May 1st. That is the last
we have 2
episode.
episodes left.
Yeah, so next week, and then I think it's a 2-part finale. So technically 3, but we have 2 Bad Batch days left. And hopefully we're able to get that finale review out before Fan Expo. But yeah, no, man,
Be doable.
a little bit shorter of a Bad Batch conversation, but like it has just really been just this really exciting, chase, save Omega, and the desperation and the courage that it all requires of Clone Force 99. And again, this motific continuation of Crosshair finding home and family with his brothers, and that, like I said, them following him in the belly of the beast, donning the attire of their enemy to do so, with this representation of what Crosshair could have been had he blindly followed the Empire. It's good shit, man. It continues to
Yeah.
be really good shit.
Absolutely. I'm so ready to see what happens, but also I'm so not ready for it to be over.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so
Yeah.
invested in the batch.
If you had told me this at the end of season 1, that I would be this like on the edge of my seat.
Right.
I just told you were crazy, man. I was not there at the beginning, but I certainly
I
am
thought
now.
this was just gonna be fun.
Yeah.
Well,
I
not
thought it
just
was gonna
fun, but
be-
mostly fun.
I thought it was going to be Star Wars A-Team, and it's become like Star Wars: The Survivors of War. It is infinitely
Yeah, dude, it's become
heavier
Star
than
Wars
that.
Band of Brothers. It's
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah,
Like, it's wild.
absolutely love it. But yeah, I think that is all we have for you guys this week. Yeah, like I said on the episode of TNAP that'll be out on Thursday or Friday. Actually, I'll say that once I do the Patreon stuff. So, Kason, where can the lovely people find you and what you do?
At Twitter and Instagram, Cray Breezy. You can find me here. And I also manage a band, deathcore band, Belvebeth. Their info is in my bios on my stuff. So if you want to find them, go through me. Follow both of us.
Yes.
Jarod,
Yes.
where?
You guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram at DarkJedi2552. And you can find the Nerd Academy podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on our website, thenerdacademypodcast.com, where if you want to get your hands on some TNAP merch, you can click that student store link.
tpublic.com.
tpublic.com.
And if you're feeling generous, you can donate to our Patreon.
Give me $1.
By chucking in a buck to our $10 tier, you get a shout out at the end of every episode, like our $10 alumnus, Keandre Lloyd.
Colin Provolone. Sir.
So good.
Steal yourself, Colin! Steal yourself!
This is me stealing myself.
And to Paco, also known as ChatGPT.
Right, ladies and gentlemen.
From the front lines of the information war, it's Alex Jones.
I love so much that it's this curdling scream and then from the front lines.
I say this all the time as like the bi-weekly shout out to Knowledge Fight. You don't realize how often that happens.
Oh, yikes.
It was an episode of Knowledge Fight from like a month ago where Alex Jones went to callers and the person was just like, Alex, let's get a war scream. And the guy on the phone was like, Wah! And then Alex did the exact same scream. Like, the man is a rat bastard. He's a horrible human being.
But goddamn, can he commit to the bit?
He can call on that battle scream on like a moment's notice. And it's the small things, truly. On our Patreon, if you subscribe at the $5 tier, you get access to the Knights of the Nerd Republic Versus series, wherein we have our latest episode out now. We're getting caught up after some scheduling conflicts. We have Mace Windu versus Darth Malgus out now. We're working on our upcoming episodes as well. Going to try to get some of those out before May to get caught up here. At the very least, we'll be finishing them up at the beginning of May. So stay tuned for all of that at the $10 tier. We plan on recording a new episode of Ionized Bastards this coming Monday. Everybody has been getting sick the moment we go to record. Dan Miller, our very own Zuzo Yort, was not feeling well like 3 weeks ago, and then we had to push it back. And then I had my little medical scare, was in the hospital, and I was like, I want to come home and record Ionized Bastards. And everyone went, Jarod, shut the fuck up and go to bed. Watch WrestleMania and go to bed, you psychopath. And then last week, our dear Dungeon Master, Michael McCoy, lost his voice, and it's kind of hard to run any form of tabletop game when you can't speak. So these last 3 weeks where I've been like, new episode of Ionized Bastards being recorded right after we record this, and then it's immediately met by somebody getting sick in some way, shape, or form. So I think we've all gotten past that. So knock on wood, new episode of Ionized Bastards next week. Trust me, I am just as antsy as you are. It was actually very sweet. There's this one person on Twitter, I can't remember their handle, who it was the weekend of my birthday. And it made me happy because I was in the car with Bill Sheehy. We were coming back from getting Burgatory when he was up in Pittsburgh, and
Star Wars Bill,
Bayou Billy. Well, he came through, and we I got this notification on Twitter, and it was this one person who replied to one of Michael promoting the most recent episode of Ionized Bastards, and they were like, "Hey, I found the show. I'm super into it. They're like, I watched through all of it, and then I binged all the way back through again. When the fuck is the next episode coming out? Because it's been like a month since the last episode of Ionized Bastards, and that was back on March 25th. And we were like, oh, that's so sweet, and it made my heart so happy. And then they reached out again this week. They were like, any news on that next episode? And I was like, oh, my heart. It filled my heart so much. Knowing that there are people out there other than myself who are obsessed with doing this fucking show. So it's coming soon. Trust me, I'm just as antsy to record it as you are to see it. And then on top of that, Kason and I are going to be in a new episode of Epic Confrontations, allegedly out next week.
allegedly.
I say that just because I know Eli and I have a lot going on with our other project we're working on, the story of Skywalker. I'll talk more about in a moment. But if he's able to get it out when he was telling us he's going to shoot for, should be out sometime next week. It is myself and Kason going head to head with the disingenuous chuckle fucks known as Big Chungus. It has already been recorded, and I can tell you that it is a titanic, thrilling match. It was very funny. It was great fucking TV, and I'm very excited for you guys to see it. And I'm excited to talk about
the match time
once it's out. And we can get a little bit more into detail about the goings on of that match and some things that happened behind the scenes that were very funny about it. But stay tuned for that. Speaking of things you can find on the In a Galaxy YouTube channel, Eli and I have been working on a project he's dubbed The Story of Skywalker, where we are taking all of the ancillary and core media from the Star Wars mythos and condensing it all into what Eli is projecting to be like a 4-hour retelling of the Skywalker saga, including as much of the ancillary material as we can include. So any of the comics, any of the games, any of the TV shows, if we can find a way to like make it directly part of the Skywalker saga, it's in there. And we are very excited for you guys to come check that out. It will be dropping on May the 4th. So tune in for that. Other than that, I think that is all we got here. So thank you.
Did we finish shoutouts? Did we miss the one in the end? Equality Texas?
I believe you did, Ray Clausen. If not,
I think I cut you off.
If not, shout out to Ray Clausen, who encourages you to donate to Equality Texas and help keep queer kids safe in the Lone Star State.
Yes.
So yeah, Ray, if Kason had to remind me of that, might be. But As always, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We are honored that you have joined us, and may the force be with you always.
Stop! Move away from the cookie jar.
Alden's a bitch. Bye.